My Lords, I too really enjoyed the Noble Lord Moore's speech, and I congratulate him on that. I did welcome him earlier when I was introduced to him in the long room, and I've got to say he seemed like a very nice man for a Telegraph editor. Now, I don't doubt the Noble Lord the Minister's integrity, but at the same time, his opening speech was full of inaccuracies and presumptions, and I will check Hansard and come back to him on all of those. But he mentioned things like the precautionary principle. Precautionary principle, it's absolutely crucial. Oh, he didn't. Well, I'll come back to him anyway on anything else he did say. This bill could have been an opportunity to improve our democracy so that every person's vote counts. But instead, the government is trying to take a backward step by forcing first past the post onto more elections. London's enjoyed a much more dynamic and engaging political landscape than the rest of England because the system has allowed people to vote for the parties and candidates that they actually like, rather than feeling forced into voting for the lesser of two evils. I was just about to say, indeed, Boris Johnson was elected as mayor using the supplementary vote system. I guess that's actually an argument against PR. I'm sure many of us regret that. So it's a great shame that the government wants to trample this vibrant democracy by forcing the dominance of the two-party system. There's no justification for it and no suggestion that voters want their votes to be constrained in this way. We should be moving away from first past the post, not bringing it back. And many noble lords, including ministers, have made comments to my noble friend and myself that while they disagree with us on almost everything, they are glad for the contributions that we make to your lordship's house. You can just nod if you agree with what I've just said. It could obviously be flattery, but there are many more Greens who can make a huge contribution to society through being elected, and of course independents and smaller parties. Many people who are really working hard at local level who can be shut out by these changes. And moreover, many people who ought to be elected who would make incredible contributions to public life, who could represent substantial sections of the public, but are shut out by first past the post. And the Noble Lord the Minister said that the justification for reinstating it is because voters find the alternative too confusing. Now, this is frankly very patronising, and rather than saying it's all confusing, why doesn't the government then improve civic and political education? I just cannot see that the government is making sense on this particular issue. I have been elected, unlike possibly the only person in your lordship's house, I've been elected under proportional representation and under first past the post. And under proportional representation, I represented far more people than I could when I was elected as a councillor under first past the post. So I can see the value in proportional representation being something that does enable more people to feel engaged with politics. Now, the two Greens in your lordship's house will oppose the rollback of democratic choice because we think that every person's vote should count. Now, another issue that we must grapple with in this bill is the corrupt funding of British politics. Inevitably, any system which allows the rich and powerful to make unlimited donations, and you might say there's a cap on donations, but actually, of course, they can make lots of smaller donations, that sort of thing is going to result in undue political influence for those donors. We should be curtailing the influence of big donors on politics. More pressing, especially in the light of the new Russian sanctions, are the loopholes that allow oligarchs and shady foreign donors to infiltrate UK politics. One example that arose in the 2019 general election was the possibility that huge amounts of money could be donated by one donor, as I said, making lots of different donations. These loopholes have got to be closed to protect the integrity of our elections. It's big money and corruption that's undermining trust in politics, well, probably, and the government and the cabinet and the Prime Minister. But generally, people are concerned about corruption and lies, and the big parties rely on big donors, obviously, but we need them to fix the system. The Green Party's position on the injustice of prisoners' voting rights is that there should be no blanket ban on those rights. It's nearly 2 decades since the UK was declared to have been in breach of the Convention on Human Rights for the blanket ban on prisoners' voting rights. Any decision to deny a prisoner their right to vote should be passed in sentencing, taking into account the particular circumstances of the individual case. Now, I feel this is rather important because, of course, there is a possibility I could be arrested in the protests that I attend, and that I might get sentenced and sent to prison, and then I would be doubly denied the right to vote, which I find quite oppressive, because, of course, it means that people protesting, if they are subject to the sort of restrictions that the government is already trying to impose through the policing bill, then they're actually doubly denied. Anyway, the government's priorities in this bill are all wrong. I look forward to working with other noble lords to improve the bill and, as far as we can, stop it in its tracks.